Wow, this has been an incredible day and an incredible week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the Pulse Conference. We are not done yet. I'm so excited to talk about um, the future that we probably haven't spent enough time talking about, which is the future of digital and where we're headed with that, particularly from a business perspective. I couldn't be more pleased to be joined by Kelly Merryman, who's the Vice President of Content Partnerships at YouTube, so that we can have that conversation. As you know, we've talked about sports and brands and streaming and music and all kinds of other things this week, including diversity and inclusion. Today, hopefully, we're going to talk a little bit more about, emerging experiences, partnerships, and more. So, Kelly, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
Now, YouTube is this giant global brand with so many different entertainment experiences kind of attached to it. Um, I'd love for you to talk just a little bit about the business and your role in that, just to kind of give people a sense of what we're going to be talking about in the next few minutes.
Absolutely. One of the reasons that I was so excited to come to work at YouTube is because the way that I think about YouTube is that we hold a mirror to the world and we reflect what's happening right now everywhere in the world. Our mission is actually to give everyone a voice and show them the world. And that's the reason you find so many different fabulous things on YouTube, from entertainment to information to education. And really, my role in content partnerships is we're all storytellers, and my team is really supporting and our business partners with our largest creators, artists, and media companies across the globe that are finding their audiences and building their communities on YouTube.
I would love for you to unpack that a little bit because um, my experiences with YouTube are so varied. There are so many different things that I
Yeah.
go to the platform for. And I don't know that if everybody who's participating today, I don't know if folks are aware of all the many kind of entertainment experiences you can have on the platform and how that plugs in. You mentioned creators. Obviously, there are kind of novice creators, but there are folks who actually utilize YouTube's creator studios and other resources to do pretty high end stuff. You have, partnerships with major media organizations. So can you just kind of tease that out a little bit?
Absolutely. Um, so I actually oversee a team of about 300 folks. Those folks are located both here in the US, but also in Canada, in Spanish Latin America, both in Mexico and Argentina, and in Brazil. And what we do on a daily basis is we partner with creators and media companies. So let me give you an example. Um, Creators, they can be lifestyle creators, so they're beauty bloggers. They could be gamers, or they could be what I call impact creators. These are folks that are out there talking about health and wellness, and really, especially in this moment in time, mental health is something that we all need to invest in for ourselves and those around us. And on media companies, it can be TV, it can be film, it can be sports, it can be news, and it can be what we would call traditional publishers on the newsstand, like Condé Nast, and Vogue is one of their largest publications. And so you can imagine that with creators, they're building businesses on our platform. What does that mean? It means first that they have to find their communities. And so they're creating programming that they can then publish to our platform and find that community. The second thing they're doing is they're building communities that can connect with each other. The way I think about it is they're the next Oprah Winfrey's. They are actually using that 4 o'clock slot that Oprah Winfrey had when I was growing up to reach their audience. And then they're building an entire franchise around that audience and in partnership with that audience. And that's what we're trying to do. We are a platform that helps them find their audience, help them engage, help them monetize, and then build a brand and become business owners through that. And we're really excited to be the largest monetizing creator platform in the world because of this, because we're sharing the majority of that ad revenue back with the creators that we are able to actually serve while they're finding those audiences.
That's one of the things that's always fascinated me too, is that we normally use this term kind of business to business enterprises, right? Um, but in this case, you really are supercharging people's businesses, right? This idea of creating an opportunity to monetize content in an environment where we're increasingly moving towards a personalized experience, right? As opposed to somebody else programming your day for you. YouTube is specifically a platform where people search for and find the things that are actually directly related to what they want. And you've been able to create that ecosystem and still have a way to allow folks to monetize their content, whether you're talking about the small Oprah Winfrey to be, or some of these big, media outlets that, spend quite a bit more money on their productions, right? First, can you just give us a sense of like the economic impact of a platform like YouTube?
Yes, it's significant. So we're actually starting to drive impact reports that help us to understand how many jobs we're actually driving in a specific locale. So over the course of this year, you'll start seeing us sharing that information so that we can say, in Atlanta, Georgia, we're actually creating this number of jobs. And it's fascinating because these creators are actually hiring hundreds, sometimes tens, sometimes hundreds of people to come and work and produce either programming itself or produce goods. So the other cool thing is that a lot of these creators, Hot Ones is this great show that I think a lot of people watch through Complex, and they sell hot sauce and they sell millions of dollars a year of hot sauce based on the brand that they've created on YouTube. And so they're actually building these businesses. And as you can imagine, they're employing a lot of people in order to do that. But we've got, we're seeing our creator ecosystem, folks that are making 5 figures a year or more are growing at 40% a year, year over year. And that's been happening for multiple years in a row now. So we're really excited about it. We are giving out hundreds of, we give these really cool plaques that say you hit 1 million subscribers. We give out hundreds of those a year in multiple countries around the globe. So it's really exciting to see the kind of new business ecosystem that is being built on YouTube and then extending beyond YouTube.
That's outstanding. The second piece, based on what you were saying earlier, that I wanted to make sure we talked about, you talked about helping folks find their audience, right? And so I imagine that because everything is being transacted digitally, we know what you're watching, if you watch it again, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in a way that we couldn't back when we were talking, back when Oprah was on at 4 p.m., right? We couldn't know those kinds of things.
Right.
But I expect that a lot of these creative types don't necessarily know how to use the YouTube platform and the analytics behind it to use that data to find their audience. What do you do to help kind of bring them along so that these creators are able to engage with audiences and fans?
No, it's a great question. And I actually want to talk a little bit about media companies here because one of the things that we found is, creators are a big piece of the ecosystem, but so are media companies. And with media companies, we're actually amplifying their business, amplifying their brands and their franchises. And Disney is a great example of this. And so, as you can imagine, when you're building out the Marvel ecosystem or the Star Wars ecosystem, you want to be sure that you're reaching and building and exciting that community 365 days a year, not just when the next film comes out. And so for the last 5 or 6 years, we have been investing heavily in our partnership with Disney to continue to grow those businesses. The Marvel channel on YouTube has over 14 million subscribers today. Um, and what we're able to do is, to the question that you just asked, Disney loves this kind of data. It allows them to figure out and understand their communities around the globe. So they understand not only the country in which that community is living, but the age and the gender. And through that, they can actually do a lot of targeting of those audiences. And that's been a really wonderful thing for them as they've launched Disney Plus around the globe. So, as you can imagine, not only are they using our platform to amplify and grow and deepen those communities around these franchises, but they're also using it as a platform to drive subscriptions for Disney Plus. And they can find a way for the organic side of the business, which is what I manage, with the paid side of the ecosystem to create this really incredible virtuous cycle to try and drive incremental subscribers to Disney Plus. In fact, in India, Disney Plus Hotstar, has a promotional channel called Disney Plus Hotstar. It has over 1 million subscribers already. It launched earlier this year. And they are driving trailers for the new shows that are coming out. And right now, they have a trailer of a show that's coming out next week. And it has 7 million views already. So you can imagine that you're actually driving excitement and interest in the business for not just the content, but also the subscription. And as you know, and as your audience knows, direct to consumer is an incredibly important pillar of our Media Co's strategy over the course of the coming decade.
And one of the things that I find really critical about that is that as we move more to direct to consumer, this question about discovery becomes super important because,
Yeah.
whereas before people kind of chose what you would watch or or use traditional advertising platforms to advertise
Yes.
content while you were watching content, right? Now, as people increasingly move over to streaming services, and thanks to you, by the way, Disney is up over 90 million subscribers. Thank you, Kelly. That's all your hard work. Appreciate it. Um, but like for those folks, um, to know what's coming, what kinds of opportunities they might consider that we think would delight them, we have to have new ways to do that. And obviously, having a platform like YouTube that has so many users, but also has some
Yeah.
intelligence built into it so that the right content is finding the right user. That is so
Yes.
critical to this ecosystem right now. And I imagine that it's not just Disney, but other media companies as well who really kind of see the value in that platform as a way to really connect users to these new experiences that they haven't really seen before.
That's exactly right. One of the things that I think about is that there's a couple of different ways in which you can experience videos on YouTube. Um, One is that you go to the search bar and you search for the video that you're looking for. Another is that a friend sends you a link. But the most common is that you come to the homepage, usually on your mobile phone, and it suggests what you should watch. So it's your own personalized EPG you can think about,
Mm-hmm.
that is suggesting what you watched based on what you've watched before. And then you start to watch, and then it has a watch next. And that watch next is also personalized based on what you might be interested in, not only what the whole set of programming that you've watched before, but what have you watched before at this time of day when you're on your mobile phone, right? Because that probably is different than when you Friday night on the big screen. And so that intelligence that's built into our search and discovery algorithms is really driving the vast majority of the way people view today. So, for the most part, people coming to YouTube to be entertained, to be educated, or to be informed, but they're not exactly sure on what. And so, it's really important for us to take the cues about what you've looked at in the past and what you're looking at in the future, to push to you what we think would be most interesting to you at this moment in time.
So I think the um, the users today are far more sophisticated than I was when I was first typing in my search for like live Super Mario. or Charlie, why'd you do that? Charlie bit me. Um, and now we see all these incredible experiences, but it's also the case that we see um, a lot more people who are also creators in the ecosystem, not necessarily big time creators in the ecosystem, but have become much
Yeah.
more sophisticated around um, how they define their content, right? The audiences that they're trying to reach. And so then they become much more sophisticated consumers in terms of kind of what they're looking for. Have you seen over the last couple of years any interesting trends around um, the ways in which people are using the platform, or things that people are particularly passionate about that folks might not realize?
Yeah, let me answer that in a couple of different ways. First of all, I would say with COVID came immense change for all of us. Um, and YouTube was one of the places where we saw significant change in the platform in a couple of different ways. The first was with regards to information. It was critical that we partner with the WHO, with the CDC, and with the CDC equivalent in over 60 countries around the globe to get information out to our viewers. And we have over 2 billion users a month on the platform, um, which is the majority of the internet population of the globe. And so we actually are a perfect place to actually push incredibly important information out very quickly. So we found ourselves at the center of the education and information superhighway of COVID as everything was changing. The second was we saw hundreds of millions of children around the globe out of school with a need to actually have education. And so we ran very quickly in partnership with lots of our creator community to try and put together a number of academic playlists, creating a specialized learning hub that allowed for parents to come in and try and find, like, well, I need fourth grade math support because this Zoom call isn't doing it for us. And we need a tutor. And can you help us figure this out? And there's so much programming on the platform that we were able to then pull together through the corpus, understanding it, and create playlists around the globe. Now, here in Los Angeles, it was tough for kids not being able to go to school, but there were lots of resources. In India, that is not the case. So in many countries, there was the lack of school became much more difficult very quickly, and so we've played a major role there. And then the other piece was that we play a major role when all of production shut down. So you don't think about this all the time, but actually, I don't know about you, but I kind of needed Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel um, and Trevor Noah at the beginning of the shutdown. I was home. I have two small children. Beyond once they were asleep, my husband and I, we just needed to be connected, but we needed to laugh. It was so heavy, especially at the beginning of the shutdown. And to feel like you could be connected to your late night friends was really important, but none of them could actually um, do any of their production. They couldn't go into the office either. And so, if you remember Jimmy Fallon's first uh, from home um, Tonight Show, his wife was recording, and you can see her like giggling at his monologue. And what's amazing is they started out a little, not sure if this was going to work to record from home. And in the end, it became more real life, more connected, just so authentic in a really cool way. And then those same late night shows, after being recorded and put on YouTube, were then aired on ABC and NBC and Comedy Central and ABC as well. So it's an amazing dynamic of, wow, this ability to actually produce in home and still put it on the television. And I probably could go on all day today with these types of examples, but, again, our goal is to be a platform that enables and amplifies whatever business you're trying to build, whatever audience you're trying to reach.
I love it. Now we've talked about partnerships, data, um, different kinds of content that end up on the platform and how we seed that and grow that. Um, and you're responsible for all that. You also mentioned that you manage 300 people. Could you
I
just
do.
talk a little bit about your career journey and how, what you did to get you to this point?
Yeah, of course. Let's see if I can, I'm an anecdote kind of person, but we're going to see if I can keep this to a brief synopsis. But I grew up in Houston, Texas, and went to the University of Texas at Austin for college. So I'm a Longhorn. And then my first job out of undergrad was in Dallas, Texas with Bain and Company. So I was a consultant. And um, I loved the job for a short period of time. And then I realized I was just, I was not fulfilled by solving other people's problems. I wanted to be the change. I didn't want to just create slides and hand it to you and say, good luck. I wanted, I wanted to take that set of slides, that binder, and go do it. And that really fueled me. So I spent time in private equity, then I went to Harvard for business school, and through all of that, I was looking for the way that I could be the change. And what I recognized was transformational industries, transformational companies were the fit for me. So I went to Sony Pictures, where, as many of y'all will know, um, media and entertainment and technology is so much an apprenticeship business, especially on the business side. And I was really lucky to be at Sony Pictures in the early 2000s, right when the beginning of the digital transformation was happening. And this was a time when I was just soaking up information right and left from anybody that I could. And Sony was small enough that I could be in both film and television, both traditional and digital, both TV and film. And that was just such a gift for me at that point in time. And then in 2007, I got an opportunity to join Ted Sarandos and Robert Kinsel at Netflix. Netflix was 7 million subscribers and shrinking at the time, which is hard to believe. It's over 200 million today. But during that time, we had just launched the streaming side of the business. And uh, about 2.5 years in, I got an opportunity to lead the international side of the business. And we can talk about that in more detail if you'd like. But I spent 4.5 years expanding Netflix across 60 countries around the globe, really setting the foundation of international expansion, which is the driving force of growth for Netflix today. And then 6 years ago, I joined YouTube to join the content partnerships team and manage the team that I have today.
Oof, that is quite a journey. And it makes me think about two things. First, um, you know, going back to this, to your role handling international for Netflix, obviously that's the new frontier. Our the kind of entertainment landscape is increasingly global, but figuring out how to take advantage of that is not really clear sometimes or
Yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Um, and I think the casual observer makes assumptions about what's doable in some of these other markets based on an expectation of kind of production capacity here in North America, which
yeah,
doesn't map to places like Chile or Brazil or what have you, right? Like that's not, if I go to Poland, I'm not going to have the same access to directors, actors, budgets, etc. So, could you just talk a little bit about what you learned on the international side that helps guide your thinking today in your current role?
yeah. For so many reasons, the opportunity to expand Netflix internationally was a game changer for me. Um, First and foremost, I grew up wanting to have control, wanting to practice, wanting to be a perfectionist. And that got me really far actually in life. Even through consulting and private equity, these were very valid, proud strengths that I had as a female professional. But the reality is, when you're in transformational industries and transformational companies, those are not always assets because you have to believe in yourself, in the mix of art and science, and in taking risk. And you cannot let perfect be the enemy of good. And when I took on international, it became very clear that there was no perfect roadmap. There wasn't a perfect market to enter. There wasn't a perfect way to enter a market. There wasn't a perfect price point. There wasn't a perfect programming list. None of it. I had no idea. There was no roadmap at all. And the goal was to jump in, pick a place, make choices, test and iterate. And that shift, that mindset from like success or failure to test and iterate was mind blowing for me because it started to say, like, no, I remember sitting in an interview in Holland where they said, well, this service isn't very good. And I think I said something along the lines of, well, this is the worst the service will ever be. It will get better tomorrow. And this idea that, of course, it's not perfect. It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to grow, to push, to change, to learn. And I think in transformational businesses, you have to have the confidence to say, oh, I'm not spending all my money. Oh, I'm not making every decision. I'm leaving some as dry powder because the user has to teach me. The audience has to teach me. The community has to teach me. The country has to teach me. And being curious, being willing to change, being willing to acknowledge that you didn't get it right the first time and that that's okay. You can make changes to it and get there. That was a skill set that Netflix and international expansion taught me, that I think has served me incredibly well over the course of the last 13, 15 years. And I hope that everybody will take a nugget of that because I do think we sometimes are way too hard on ourselves or wait too long to make a decision because we're hoping for that perfect decision.
Wow. Um, so when you shift your mindset from being concerned about making a mistake to being more concerned about missing an opportunity, how does that change the way you evaluate your successes and failures, right? Like, what are you, I mean, I get the kind of we win or we learn, but then what are you trying to learn? And how do you know that you put out your best effort when you leave a little bit more room to kind of make mistakes and keep moving?
Well, I can tell you at YouTube that I think that that's the beauty of being a senior executive. Like I always say to my teams, that what I always say to my teams is, you know, no decision comes to me or my leads that's black and white, ever. The reason it comes to you is because it's 70-30, 60-40, and every now and then 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst decision is not making a decision at all because now you've got a group of 300 people underneath you asking you what you're trying to achieve. And so, from my perspective, what you care about is moving forward. That's what you celebrate. You celebrate the impact you're having on the people around you. You celebrate the fact that you're moving forward. And whether or not you could have moved 9 yards versus 8 yards, we're not a sports team right now that's working in 4 down territory. It's not like everything you're doing is third and long. You have the opportunity every day to make change and to make progress. And that's what we should be celebrating. And we have competition. That's the beauty of this business. There's so much competition that we can learn from, and we can look over and we can say, like, oh, look, they ran faster. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see if we can run faster. It's not like, oh, we should have run faster, but let's try. Let's see. And I think if you can put that frame of reference on building your business, then the sky's the limit, because you're not saying like, oh, look, I hit 50% growth. That's amazing. You're like, I hit 50, but that person hit 70. I didn't realize we could grow that fast. Let's keep trying. And so I think driving that kind of energy is a really critical component of um, enabling and empowering and exciting the team, that you have, so that you continue to make such great strides in this exciting business. I don't know if that answered your question completely,
Oh,
but
you absolutely answered my question and then some. Um, and I want to, I think we have time for maybe one more question. So I'll just ask you this. I mean, it is a very exciting business, and YouTube has been up to some very exciting things in this exciting business. You mentioned some of the changes in terms of what consumers were looking for during the COVID era, but I anticipate that at some future point we'll all be let back outside again, and there'll be some learnings left over from this time window that will help guide your thinking going forward. Are there any things that come to mind where you're looking at the future and you're really excited based on some of the things that you guys were able to do this year?
we set up a new health team under leadership of a guy on my team, Dr. Garth Graham, who is just incredible. Cardiologist, been in the business 25 years, been in public health under a number of presidential administrations. Um, and here's what he would say. He would say, do you know that less than half of prescriptions get filled? And the reason for that is because when people go to their doctor, they go to their doctor once a year when they're sick. They don't have the trusted relationship with that doctor that thinks that doctor has my best, you know, you know, what should I say? Like, he's thinking about me, he knows what I need. However, if you look at YouTube and you look at the communities on YouTube, people will say, wow, I'm part of this community. That creator has my back. That creator knows what's going on with me. One of the most important things we did during COVID was something called the With Me campaign. And we had hundreds of creators create 15-second PSAs that were stay home with me, to help people at the very beginning to understand the importance of staying home. And then we did, like, study with me, and we did, yoga with me, and all of these different things. Well, here's what we learned through that whole arc. We can create belonging and connection on YouTube in a way that doctors cannot. How do you think about an environment in which we as YouTube can create communities that provide belonging and information and support that allows you, the patient, and the families surrounding the patient to more easily get through what could be one of the hardest things in life? And that fuels me to think that that started as me at the zoo in 15 seconds, can actually not just be an entertainment platform, but we can be a platform for every person on this earth to feel connected to a community and supported in the hardest time of their life.
Amazing. Um, Now you got me. I'm going to go right back down the YouTube rabbit hole as soon as this conversation is done. Thank you so much, Kelly. This has been a wonderful conversation, and it's a great way to think about kind of where the industry is and where it's headed. I think what you said about community, connection, and all the other things we talked about with respect to, discovery and connecting people with their audience and everything. all those things are really core, because at the end of the day, we talk about the media business. What we're really selling is passion and emotion and understanding, right? And
That's right.
um, the videos that get created, whether it's short or long form, high cost or low cost production, it's always in the service of creating that connection and understanding. And I think you've given everybody a much better sense of kind of one, what matters, and also how you do it. So for that, thank you, thank you, thank you for spending some time with us. We wish you continued success. Um, and like I said, you'll see me down another YouTube rabbit hole. Super Live Mario, here I come.
I love it. Thanks, Jay. It was a pleasure.